All right, well, it is Friday again. And
Thank God.
Thank God. Really? You're going to say that?
Yes.
I come to work every day and I am thankful. In fact, I'm depressed on Fridays because it
No,
means...
I'm happy.
Really?
Yes.
Does your boss know this?
Well, he does now.
Uh-oh. Well, we'll have a chat after this.
Okay.
So, I'm Britton, and this is Margaret, previously known by me as Evil Margaret, only because for about 10 or 15 years of me practicing law, Margaret was on the other side. She was an adjuster for, we'll keep it,
Yeah.
yeah,
We will put that in there.
a company which shall remain nameless.
I like that.
Whose name shall not pass my lips.
Okay.
Is that right?
I like that.
But boy, I enjoy taking them to court. Anyway, so Margaret, you've been an adjuster. You were an adjuster for how long?
12 years.
Okay, and did you always represent that particular employer?
I did.
Okay, so knows the ins and outs of workers' compensation from an adjuster's perspective, which is one of the things that I like having the team that we've got here at Kaplan Morrell, because we've got two team members who used to be adjusters. Mm-hmm. We've got one attorney, Rhonda, who used to represent insurance companies for like over 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And we're still trying to find her soul and heart. It's kind of growing, right? It is. But that means that we're able to use that knowledge for injured workers, because the way that the other side looks at the case is kind of important. And we help our clients avoid problems, which is kind of my maxim. It's always better to avoid a problem than try to repair it afterwards. And I thought this would be a good time for us to talk about things that adjusters look for
Yes.
that are red flags, meaning things that are going to be like, if you see them, then you're going to train your evil adjuster ray on them and shrivel them like a small child with a magnifying glass and a sun and an ant, right?
Well, not that drastic, but we have questions. We would have questions.
Okay. And would you cackle if you were successful, or no?
No.
No. Okay, what's number one?
Number one on my list is late reporting. So we would always look when the injured worker claimed that the incident occurred, and then when he reported it to the employer.
And that's a big issue for, the more time that passes between you getting injured and you kind of formally reporting the injury to your supervisor, to the health services, if your employer has a health services, or formally to the insurance company. The more time that passes, bigger the flag, correct?
Exactly.
Now, there's one kind of time frame, though, that automatically raises a flag, and that's if, Fridays and Mondays, right? So
right.
What's that?
If an accident happens on a Friday and then you're not at work all weekend and you go in on Monday and say, oh, this happened on Friday. Well, why didn't you report it on Friday?
And they're going to think if you waited until Monday, maybe you didn't get injured on Friday. Maybe actually you got injured on the weekend.
Correct.
But now you'd like work comp to pay for everything.
Exactly.
And so if you're injured on a Friday, you need to say something
On Friday.
On Friday. And even if it's, I don't know if I hurt my back or not, it kind of tweaked, but let me see how it feels next Monday. If you say that, that's going to alleviate that big concern. But of course, it always helps to do it in a verifiable way, because, I don't know, my perspective was the supervisor's always like, oh, you never said anything.
Right.
So email, and that's what's nice about kind of the time we live in, is emails, text messages are so much easier now to prove about what people said, when, etc., as opposed to like when we had to do stuff with paper and pencil.
Right.
Okay. All right. So late reporting, what's the other issue in terms of the more time that passes? I mean, what do you start thinking then? I didn't prepare you for this question.
You didn't,
no.
But I'm trying to think back to those days of when that happened, and
can we refer to them as those dark days?
No.
Okay, all right.
Just what kind of medical treatment is needed? Did you need medical treatment right away for the accident? Do we have to wait? I mean, if you're waiting to report it, why do you have to be seen right away?
And the more time that you wait, also kind of like, well, the accident must not have been that bad if it didn't prompt you to need medical care right away, or that you didn't realize that it was work-related. Maybe there's some questions. Maybe it isn't work-related if you didn't think it was work-related. So again, it's just important, if you've been injured on the job, report it. Even if you don't think
right
you need
away.
medical care, even if you don't, just report it in some way, so that if later on it gets worse and you do need to say, hey, I need medical care, I need attention, at least you can show that you reported it back then.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Number 2,
I have witnesses to the incident. It's a big one, especially with the client that I worked for. I mean, there were people all around all the time, so we could always contact that witness and, ask them, did this accident occur? How did it occur? When did it occur? Where did it occur?
Did they complain when they were lifting? Did they look like they had hurt themselves,
right.
Or did complain?
Exactly.
And how often would you find, didn't see anything?
I would say that would happen about 75% of the time.
And that would make you more likely to maybe deny a claim?
Correct.
Okay, all right, good. So if you've got witnesses, if there are witnesses around, make sure that they know and they'll remember it.
Yes.
And if you identify witnesses when you're asked, because you will be asked, make sure these are people who are not going to say, nope, never said anything, no, never happened.
Mm-hmm. Try and get names,
Yeah.
phone numbers, something.
Okay. Number 3.
I have malingering.
Yeah, that's
a big one.
Dangerous word. Now, malingering is an actual, there's a definition, which is the intentional exaggeration of complaints, and then there's what's called kind of somatoform disorder, which is the complaints are exaggerated, maybe it's intentional, maybe it's not. What would you look for in the medical records for that?
When the doctor's findings are saying there's no real findings, like on an MRI or an X-ray, and it's just coming from the injured worker saying, oh, this hurts or that hurts.
And the problem that injured workers face a lot is a lot of injuries, there aren't any findings on an X-ray, there aren't findings on an MRI. It's just a tissue strain, something that may not,
muscle pain
and everything. And so then what doctors kind of look for, and even adjusters, are where somebody says, my whole body hurts, everything hurts, it's my entire arm, my entire back, and that also can be a big red flag to both the adjusters and the doctors. Okay, next.
We always looked for prior injuries to the same body parts. So if they had work comp claims years back, we would go to the division and pull up all their claims from them and see if they had any prior injuries to that same body part.
Now, prior injuries by themselves weren't a big deal.
No.
Correct? I mean, it was okay if there was. I mean, it might give you pause. Let's make sure I'm not buying an already dented car, so to speak.
Exactly.
Okay. But what would be worse is if you ask somebody, had you had any prior injuries, and they say no, and then you go and check the division or other places and you find it, then what does that do?
Well, that brings up a lot of red flags, saying, did you injure that same body part at home? Again, were there witnesses to that accident? And what the doctor is saying about it.
Yeah, and again, having prior problems, and let's put a little asterisk by the word problem because I'll talk about that in a moment. That's not a problem. That's not an issue with your claim. The bigger problem is when you've had medical care, you've had a prior work injury to that body part, and you deny it. And you say, no, never had any issues, never had any problems. And so if you are asked when you're injured on the job by the treating physician, and they will ask, and by the therapist, and they will ask, and if you do a statement with the adjuster will ask, and they ask you, have you had any issues or problems with that body part before? I want you to interpret issues and problems as, did you go to a medical provider for that body part? Issues and problems doesn't mean, were you near death because of a back injury, or did you lose time because of a back injury, or did you have a work-related back injury? Issues and problems mean, did you see a medical provider ever at any time for complaints to that body part? If that's the case, then you should disclose it, because if you don't disclose it, now you're a liar. Okay, good. Next one.
We always, well, not always, but sometimes took a recorded statement from the injured worker. So we want to try and get an accurate history of the incident, and that always has to be the same to the employer, to the physician, and to the adjuster. Again, how it happened, where it happened, when it happened, again, witnesses, and were there any surveillance cameras in the area where the incident happened.
But you're looking at, typically an injured worker is going to have 3 different statements about how they got injured. What they say to the employer, what they say to the doctor, and what they say to the insurance company, adjuster. And if there are differences between those 3 statements, it's a red flag. Because, and so when you talk about how you got injured, you need to understand that that statement that you give will be compared to how you described how you got injured to your employer or to the doctor or to the insurance adjuster. And if they are not the same, Katie, bar the door, right?
Yes. Yeah. So be consistent. Your date of injury is always going to stay the same because that's when you got injured. So just consistency.
Okay. Next one.
Complying with medical treatment and missed medical appointments.
Why is that a red flag for you?
If you're missing appointments, as an adjuster, they can cut off your temporary benefits. So.
And it starts to make it look like, well, maybe they're not as injured as they say.
Yep.
Particularly if they're off work and you're paying lost wages.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Last one,
returning to work. Either
that's a red flag, returning to work?
Well, it's not.
You don't want people to return?
I want people to return to work.
All right.
Not a red flag, but...
Unless they work here and it's a Friday, right?
That's right.
Okay, good.
So if you have restrictions, always keep the lines of communication with your employer open. So if you have restrictions and they can accommodate those restrictions, try it out. See if you can do the job.
Excellent. Well, I hope this helps you understand just kind of how difficult and complicated workers' compensation can be here in Colorado. And so if you or anyone you know has been injured on the job, what number should they call?
970-356-9898.
We offer free consultations and we handle cases on a contingent fee basis. And so there is no risk to talk with us, and we would love to hear from you. And we'd love to hear from any friends or family that you would recommend to us. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.